All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with a bang, enabling a hyper-connected ecosystem. Well, what comes under its radar, this discussion, right? You talk about connected customers, connected employees, connected partners, and everything connected, connected things. In the words of Arthur Schopenhauer, the great German philosopher, who said once that talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. It is so true when it comes to connection. So without any ado, allow me to please cast our panel members. We would be warmly welcoming the ever so gracious and the very smiling Liliana Caimacan, the head of Global Innovation Tata Consumer Products. We'll also be joined by, as a panel member, Nirav Sampat, the Chief Technology Officer, Accenture Operations. Raman Prabhakaran, the CIO, India from Adecco. We'll also be joined by Vinod Bhat, CIO, Vistara. Murali, Krishnan, the AVP and Head of Global Solutions Engineering Hub, Tata Communications, would also be strongly holding the fort of this discussion that's coming up. And ladies and gentlemen, to talk about our session moderator, who is a very well-spoken conversationalist, Nataraj, Tammana, the partner consulting from Deloitte, India. He's going to be holding the strings of the conversation. Well, Nataraj, I have to ask you how you're doing, how's your panel doing, and how's the day faring for you? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Shikha, for the wonderful introductions. I mean, I am doing great and very excited about today's conversation. Firstly, a warm welcome to all our panel members and everyone who's attending the session today. Today we live in a world where technology is rapidly changing the way we live. Technology is changing the way we work, the way we interact with each other, and the way businesses, run their business, engage with their customers, partners, and every other stakeholder, employees, right? All the stakeholders in the ecosystem. So during today's conversation, we will try to, get some insights and perspectives from our, panel members who are esteemed leaders in the industry in terms of how this hyper-connected ecosystem is really transforming the way companies are looking at running their businesses in the future. So let me maybe open up the conversation with you, Vinod. Pandemic has really accelerated the whole digital adoption, and every business today is feeling the need for technology and need for technology to really run the business right in today's world. It's no longer a differentiator, but it's really become the need of the hour. So given airlines business is always a very high touch when it comes to customers, how is the overall industry looking at connecting all the stakeholders in the future, whether it is the customers, employees, partners, and what kind of hyper-connected ecosystems do you envision evolving in the near future?
Okay, thank you, Nataraj, for this wonderful panel. It's always a privilege to be among these esteemed guests, panelists. Yes, as you rightly said, Nataraj, that airlines is a very high touch in the industry now, particularly last 2 years have been very different, where the services have changed, from offline to online mode. The channels have changed. It has gone beyond the omni-channel. And what it has actually given us few of the data points while we had to obviously sustain our business. But what has happened is a lot of data has got generated because of this. So data was there. And second is security played a lot bigger role because airlines is a very regulated industry. And you have to make sure that you are compliant, you are basically secure, you are safe. While the whole ecosystem, whether it is the customers, is the partners, is the employees, they are all really distributed. because whether you talk about the airport operators, you talk about the government agencies, you talk about the international destinations, so all are distributed. So if you look at the whole ecosystem, the whole goalpost has actually changed a little bit more during pandemic. So it is just to set the context. Now the more important is that how do you integrate? I think now the question is about integration. You have got enough data. Data, you have to obviously the separate track of analyzing the data, making sure that you make sense of the data, because a lot of data everywhere, but it doesn't make sense. So you have to make sure that the right data you are picking up, whether it is regarding the customers, it is regarding your partners, your employees. So there's other part of the story. But more importantly, that how does these stakeholders, how are they getting connected? And how are these communication channels in terms of hyperconnectivity are getting ingrained as part of the operating model? I think that's very important. And how does the business leverage that? So I think this was a change, which all of us felt. For example, if you take the purely from the customer point of view, customer needs a lot more online tools, lot more self-service tools, lot more communication mechanisms of getting updated. For example, the check-in process, the baggage tracking, the feedback, the support, the call center, you name it. And similarly, the employees need better collaboration tools, not only to collaborate among themselves, but also have access to the information, access to the data, but also be able to communicate to the partners as well as to the end customers. So it's because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that your employees are productive and your employees are actually delivering what business is expecting us to do, right? So that's the second piece. So if you look at it, there's a journey we have been through. I think most of the airlines are doing it, that, making sure that the right, I would say the partners are getting onboarded, the employees are getting upskilled, because a lot of employees, it was a change for them also. Partners also, there's a change. While we keep everything under the umbrella of the security and safety and compliance on top of it, because it's like, whether it is GDPR or any of the regulatory framework which you need to follow. I think that is really, I would say, keeping us relevant for our customers, because as you rightly said in the beginning, it's not a choice anymore. It is how the business is delivered today. And we're talking about new initiatives which even government has started. For example, Airport Authority of India has started a Digi Yatra, which is more about that your face will be the boarding pass. So, how are you basically going to leverage the technology part of it while delivering the services for them customers? So, all in all, I would say that the data exchange, the information exchange, the communication connectivity is going to be a lot more relevant. And it is becoming the central theme of the way we deliver the business. So I'll take a pause here.
That's awesome, Vinod. I mean, yeah, data integration, communication, collaboration, and also the biometrics point that you mentioned about facial recognition. That sounds pretty exciting. So looking forward to a day when I get to board the flight without having to worry about getting a boarding pass printed. So really looking forward to that.
Very soon, Nataraj.
Thank you. Thank you. So moving on, Nirav, I think let's switch our gear a little bit. So Vinod spoke about customers in the airline industry. Now in the consulting profession, right, it's all about knowledge capital and it's all about employees. Nirav, at Accenture, how are you looking at the rapidly changing workforce with more and more younger generation coming into the workforce? Obviously, the expectations are very different from the previous generations. This is the generation that probably has grown up with mobile phones, from the time of birth. So how are you looking at employee engagement, and what kind of hyper-connected ecosystems are you looking at enabling, to deliver that engagement and amplify the experience with all the employees?
I think great question. The key thing here is that engaging employees is key to success for everybody, right? And especially with the younger generation joining in a lot larger numbers, I think it's important to recognize what motivates them. And how is that different, right? And here are a few things that we've seen, right? Number one, what we call as the rise of individualism. What it really means is that while employees are broadly aligned to the organization goals in terms of the work that they do, but they have their unique thoughts. They absolutely want to make an impact and they want to get recognized for that, right? Number two is about flexibility. They want flexibility in hours, in location, from where they work, etc., right? Number three, they really have clear expectations from their employers. They expect that their employers would be really to be purposeful about areas such as sustainability. They hold their employers to very high ethical standards, and they want their employers to really be doing everything in a very responsible manner. Clearly, you talked about mobile phone, but that's not the only thing. They do want to see and experience cutting edge, technology in the work environment like they do in their own personal environment, right? And finally, they have views. And they have very strong views about areas such as, say, diversity, fairness, and they want to be able to express that. So the reality is we have this generation and they want to do all of this stuff. And they are connected, right? So how can technology be the glue to help and make this as the hyper-connected ecosystem, which not only connects, but also bolsters the engagement? And I think the way I look at it is, at the end of the day, whatever you do, we need to put people first. And I think that's the philosophy that we use across the patch, right? Now, we talked about pandemic, and some of the things in technology have always evolved significantly during pandemic. So things like the online platform for collaboration, like what we are doing here. Now it seems to be default, right? Technology has helped everybody to work from home. So that's become default. So what's kind of next, right? So the way I look at it is the platforms evolve from what's just audio and video to better collaboration, communities, people able to express their opinion like they do in social without, really the fear of getting, retaliation and so on and so forth, right? Use of things such as sentiment analysis to, separate noise from a whole host of, stuff out there to figure out what do the employees really feel and what can we do, in terms of the engagement. The second is democratization of technology, right? Things such as low code, no code, and many other technologies give the power of personalization in hands of employees. And I think they feel far more powerful, right? Number three, learning is a very key important for today's younger generation. They want to constantly upskill themselves. They want to learn. They want to learn differently, on demand, very different ways. And one of the very good examples that I'll talk about in Accenture is a program called Technology Quotient. And what we basically said is, irrespective of whichever part of Accenture you are, you need to know about upcoming and emerging technologies, whether it is 5G, whether it is blockchain, whether it is artificial intelligence, and be conversant with it. And so that we can talk to clients and bring all of this, in real life, right? So I think it's about how do we continue to provide the right learning for the first day. So I think, especially with the new generation, we need to really look at not only what existing today, but what will exist a few months and years from now, and be able to, work together with them in terms of adoption of these new technologies, giving them the right exposure. And I think using that, we can create a very, very powerful channel of engagement, not just connection. So that's the way, we look at that, Nataraj.
Thank you, Nirav. I mean, a few things that really resonated very well with me in terms of employee first as a philosophy. You talked about engagement driven by a sense of purpose, responsibility, empowerment, flexibility, learning. You touched on diversity. You touched a few very, very important aspects, and they're personally very close to me as well. And I can relate to it. Having a 15-year-old daughter at home, I can definitely relate to a lot of things that you covered, Nirav. Thank you. So my next question is to you, Murali. So we heard Vinod talk about customers and Nirav, talk about employees and how we build a hyper-connected ecosystem with the different stakeholders in the business. Right now, Tatacom is a business which actually brings all this to life. So at Tatacom, how are you, looking at this entire evolution of hyper-connected ecosystem, and what is it that you are hearing from your clients in terms of, their expectations, their needs for the future?
That's a great question, Nataraj. In fact, thanks, Mr. Nirav. That was a great perspective that you bring in, and thanks to Mr. Vinod. Also, in fact, one thing that I just made a note of was the Digi Yatra, right? I have to do some research on that. It's a it's a fantastic initiative from the government of India. So coming back to your question, Nataraj, as we engage with the customers, obviously, I think some level of normalcy has already returned, right? And when we engage with the customers, I would rather broadly put the perspectives in 4 different dimensions. Okay. Number one is, how do you really bring an ubiquitous experience, application experience to employees? That's one of the important questions that quite often come. Number two, if you look at in the recent times, obviously, the adoption of the cloud or internet first across the industries, across the segments, have become more or less, a norm, right? So, which also essentially means the boundaries between, the office space and the remote workspace, which is essentially, work from home or work from anywhere, that is diminished largely. So, that also, while it's a great thing, but one thing which definitely is something which is going to sort of pick the brains of the CEOs, the CISOs, is the security, right? How secure are my employees? And of course, partners, right? For that matter, when you create an ecosystem, you also invite partners. For example, we were also talking about, the APIs, connecting with, the BFS industry, primarily, if I take as an example, or if you are running a CRM application which are seamlessly connecting into some of the the fintech platforms, you require APIs, right? So which is where the partner comes in. So these are 2 things. The third most important thing is the collaborativeness, right? How can the employees and the partners collaborative effectively, anytime, anywhere, at the same time securely? Once again, security. And the fourth one, which is very interesting, which in the last few months that we have started hearing primarily from the customers based out of India, is the mission to human and the mission to mission communications, right? So these are the 4 important things that we are seeing as a trend in our conversations. Firstly, so if you break it into if you look at all these 4 things, the first 2 things, if you look at primarily the network and the security, if you look at it, they become the cornerstone, or rather the bedrock, for the application and the experience of the application for the employees and the partners, right? In this dimension, if you look at network security, when we look at both of them, I think the one element which is quite often repeated is SASE, right? Even though it's a term coined by Gartner, I think predominantly it's an amalgamation of technologies coming together, right? Both on the network and security coming together, which is expected to deliver simplicity in management, a lot of visibility, a great level of security, and most importantly, the visibility, right? Because these are 4 or 5 elements which are natural in when you're going to manage quite a diverse workforce spread across, and at the same time, which are quite experience oriented, right? That's the first 2 elements. The third element, which is broadly to do with collaboration, right? So now with collaboration, what's happening is that, one thing that we are definitely seeing is that employee requires omni-channel experience. Even the customers require omni-channel experience, right? Now, what eventually happens is that, gone are the days when you had just one platform where, your customers contact you, and then you cater to your customers. That's uni-channel. Now it's omni-channel. That also means the complexity of management has grown multifold. So what is really happening is, many enterprises that we are engaging with, they really want to kind of offload these challenges, because for the simple reason that when there is an experience issue, right, with one employee, then it becomes a bit of a circuitous effort from the enterprise to troubleshoot, to manage the experience levels of employees, because once the experience of the employees dip, obviously the adaptability will take a hit, right? There are going to be certain experience scores which can possibly take a dip in the IT management. So what many organizations that we have started seeing is that they're sort of offloading this entire experience of management to the provider like Tata Communications today. Quite often than not that we see that, hey, why don't you provide this as a managed service to us, right? Because all that matters to me is my employee shouldn't suffer. The experience cannot be compromised, and you give the experience which is absolutely spot on. So I don't want to really, carry the baggage of managing that experience. That's the third thing. And finally, when we are talking about, the missions, which was the 4th dimension that I mentioned. So, it's a very tricky part, right? So because one thing that we can clearly see is 5G is something which is capturing the imaginations of many, right? not just the consumers, but even the enterprises, because 5G is a completely different paradigm compared to 4G, right? 5G's use cases are quite vast, quite expanded in comparison to 4G. You have private 5G, enterprise 5G, which are in fact upcoming technologies, right? And many of the vendors who are actually the OEMs, they are also experimenting this. We also have carved out a center of excellence for 5G in Tata Communications. And when we engage quite nascently with some of the customers, I think the interest levels of the customers are like, obviously 5G is little nascent, and there is a lot of excitement that we are able to see. But they also see that, when is it going to come, and when is the 5G going to become a reality in terms of solving some of the complex use case experiences. Okay, so to put together, there are 4 dimensions. Obviously, one being the network associated with security, which is SASE. The second is the collaboration experience, where naturally there is a lot of tilt in terms of or the inclination towards the dialogues. And the fourth most important is the mission communications. And 5G is definitely a place to watch out for. And this is something which is slowly and steadily, kind of crawling into the real-time conversations now.
Yeah, I think 5G is something that has been much awaited. And everybody is looking forward to the use cases that will be enabled by 5G. So thank you for that perspective, Murali. So Liliana, let me turn to you. If you could maybe throw some light on what kind of digital ecosystems that you see evolving in the consumer goods industry. Right, I mean, that'd be great. I mean, typically when we talk about consumer goods, we think about personalization, we think about retail experience in the context of retail, right? We think about a lot of data, and we think about the supply chain and the distribution aspects. So if you could please share your perspective on what kind of trends you are seeing around digital and hyper-connected ecosystems, that'll be great.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone, and very, very happy to be here and kind of bring the consumer perspective after such interesting other perspective, from employees' perspective, and working with companies and kind of advising them what's the next and how to use data at that specific level. I think data is very valuable also when you talk about fast-moving consumer industry. And this is very important because allow us, and here I said about companies or brands, to better engage with the customers and make sure that we deliver against their expectations. And that's coming from different directions these days. I think what we see, first of all, it is a big movement from towards personalization. Basically consumers are looking for something which is dedicated to me, which is meant to deliver and satisfy my specific needs. So that's the customer expectation, and they have different behaviors, which us as a companies, our brands, need to take into account when we create our products, how we can deliver this individualization, how we create experiences which will allow consumers to get engaged with the product and move beyond consumption. So I think everybody is looking, to go beyond just, okay, if I take some brands from our portfolio, I drink a tea and that's it. It is, what's the experience I get when I drink that specific cup of tea? What does this mean for me? How do I engage with the brand? What this brand is doing beyond just delivering tea and maybe making profit? How I connect and understand better what's happening, in the entire ecosystem, and how brands, really go beyond some just the product itself. So brand is much more than this. I think that's one aspect. When we say about hyper individualization and connection with the consumers, data will help us understand what consumers do expect. What are their behaviors? How we can interact in the best way possible? How we can deliver that experience when they expect the most or expect the least, depending, what kind of experience you want to have, but also how we can deliver brilliant experiences. I think that's very important. So what you want the product to be there for people in the moment they need, in the best way they need, and they expect, to get something which is valuable and makes sense for them. And we've seen this happening even more in the last 2 years during pandemic. I think this really force the brands to kind of define and redesign their portfolio, first of all, to create that kind of products and services which will allow them to better engage with the consumers and get to them in a different way, readjust their business models and their route to market. I think that's another important thing. So definitely, if we talk about digital environment and data, this allowed us to basically reach consumers with our products. In the moment we've been constrained on houses, and e-commerce and existing of e-commerce really allowed us to deliver products and continue to deliver products to the consumers, and allow them to also have bring some of the experience they used to have outside of their home in home. So to summarize of this, I think big keys aspects are around personalization. So people do want something which is dedicated, meant to me, something I can enjoy, and I know that's delivering in the best way possible against my expectations and my behaviors. So how brand can create something which is meant to address these aspects and requirements is fundamental and very important, and data plays an important role here. It is about new routes to market and engaging and delivering the products to the consumers whenever they want and how they want. And that's another important aspect we've seen coming through from through the lens of e-commerce, and that was really going to the explosion of e-commerce, and very much driven in the initial phase by younger generation, what we call Gen Z, millennials. So they're basically the ones expecting to get a product whenever they want, however they want. But also we've seen an adjustment and a transformation happening to all of us as we move through pandemic, being forced. And I think this digital transformation happened in the last 24 months, been accelerated, and I'm sure it will continue. We may see some of the things slightly challenges, but still data personalization are fundamental. Probably one area where there is still room to improve, it is how we deliver this experience as a brand. Yeah, so talking about e-commerce, talking about social commerce lately, which is to another channel which really blooming. Definitely this personalization is missing a little bit. So definitely engaging and creating and using technology to recreate the in-store experience is fundamental and very important. So people are looking for something like this, and they have great examples of brands who recreate virtual experiences and virtual online shops. Very much into the top brands, like Burberry recently just launched an online shop using VR, AR. Consumers are really have the feeling that you are in a store, in a Burberry store, when you go doing your shopping online. But that's something which consumers would expect. And coming to your point, it is also about identifying opportunities for new product development. So I think that's another key aspect which you need to take into account. So really understanding what are the latest trends and how this can be embedded and implemented into the new product innovation. I think that's really important. And for example, we work with an agency, Taste AI, it's called. What they're doing, they're really scanning a lot of data, starting from menus, cocktail menus and other menus across the globe, looking to kind of recipes from foods and beverages across the globe to really identify what are the new and the latest trends if you talk about food and beverages. What are some that kind of things, ingredients, what are consumer expectation mixes and new products you can create to really generate and drive and give something new and different to your customers. And definitely data is there to help us create these ecosystems and partnerships which can help bringing products faster to the consumers. So that's another thing, and kind of really clear impact on supply chain, adaptability of supply chain, a bit of flexibility, working together and find the right partners to create the products together, rather than try to do it by yourself, to make sure that you move much faster. Agility, it's probably a key word in the world we live in today, and data is there to help us to get and become more agile as a company, closer to the consumers, understand better their needs, and create that kind of products and experiences which are meant to deliver and satisfy this experience in the best way possible and expectation.
Absolutely, Liliana. I think you touched upon data and digital and technology being able to deliver hyper personalization, maximize the level of engagement with the consumers, right? And enabling the brands to communicate more effectively with the consumers.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that perspective, Liliana. And Raman, over to you. Yours is a very, very people-centric business. So how are you looking at digital and technology and hyper-connected systems to build more resilience? I mean, resilience is something that we have been tested as a humanity in the last 2 years with the pandemic. So, from a business perspective, how are you looking at, building more resilience? And also, how are you looking at engaging with your customers, differently in this hyper-connected world?
Yeah, thanks, Nataraj, and thanks for having me here. See, if you look at from the Adecco is basically, it's a people organization. And I think we deal with people in terms of every aspect of what we breathe in and out is all about people. And our key stakeholders in terms of the people are employees, our associates, and our clients, right, in 3 areas. But holistically, what we have done from a strategy standpoint, if you look at the 3 areas that probably we focus, one is the user experience, another is productivity. Now, these 3 are the 3 areas where people internally work towards in terms of enabling the business part of it. Now, if looking at digitization and then which is basically around looking at the business architecture and technology architecture and merging together and enabling the experience or a growth or a productivity. Now, when you look at that, what we look at is like, I call it as a BOST architecture. Probably, I think you guys heard of it. The business operation systems and technology, right? I think we look at each elements of the data that comes out from the business operations systems and technology. And that data, I think we look at in terms of building some use cases and then eventually converting that to specific businesses into technology architecture and stuff. Now, holistically, if you look at from what we do is all about in terms of hiring people, placing people and stuff, what the concept of the front office, middle office, and the back office. I think what we have looked at is basically, I think, looking at the technology architecture in every layer that we do, and also from increasing the productivity, especially around how many screenings that we could do, the candidate screenings we can do, how fast we can do, how fast we can onboard people. I think we're looking at the robotic process automations in terms of every layer of what we do from the front office standpoint. And we have also mixed in terms of the payroll processing once the employee is onboarded, and payroll part of it, trainings and from the learning standpoint, and then performance management. Right, I think we looked at every HR processes across the entire organization, and we are looking at the robotic process automation to automate it and increase the experience. And also we know that the mobile is probably everybody's hand. So which means that bring that persona in terms of the mobile, in terms of whether it is an employee or the associate or with the clients in terms of bringing them onto the mobile platform in terms of the experience, right? Whether the pay slips or the attendance stuff or the specifically information that we need to communicate between the organizations to the employees to the associates. I think we are looking at those architectures very cleanly across the board in terms of the automate those processes and as well. And that drives the transformation for us in terms of the technology stuff. And also on the middle office and the back office, especially in the ERP systems that we have, we leverage the BOST architecture that we talked about in terms of making sure every process is automated, every process has got the very less from the manual touch point standpoint. And that is integrated within our system so that the experience that we give provide to the employees. For example, like recently we rolled out a mobile app cloud-based solutions for example, payroll processing, and as well as the automated pay slips and like chatbots and all the stuff where employees can even look at their pay slips and stuff through chatbots and stuff, so through the mobile app. Now that has really helped in terms of increasing the productivity and experience of the employees. Now, from an associate standpoint, where we place people into different companies and stuff, we're looking at every touch point and looking at automate those. I think we are not completely there, but we are looking at in terms of how well we can bring them into the mobile architecture, in terms of the touch points of the payrolls, tax information that they get passed on from between the company and as well as associates. And we're looking at that automate as well. So that, I think, is the fundamentally that we're looking at all the three layers of the front, middle office, and the back office standpoint, in terms of the bringing the people together in the platform of the mobile, and the technology transformation that we're looking at in terms of the integrating both business and technology is fundamentally is what driving our businesses and stuff. But looking at the growth that we're looking at in terms of number of associates are doubling, and the opportunities are pretty big. As we know, I think it's the India is growing in terms of the overall in terms of the hiring standpoint, and that is really helping our business as well. So technology is a key for us, and we're looking at to implement in almost every aspect of our business.
Great, Raman. I think beyond the employee engagement and experience, you also touched upon quite a few factors around automation, looking at the entire end-to-end, value chain ecosystem of processes, and drive more automation, right, and bring in more technology to drive more efficiency. Thank you, Raman, for that perspective. I think it was wonderful conversation. Got to hear some very wide spectrum of perspectives from all of you across industries, across stakeholders in the business, and some interesting takeaways in terms of engagement with the stakeholders, experience, personalization, data, collaboration. Great thoughts. So just want to take a moment to say a big thank you to all our panel members for taking time and participating in this engaging conversation. I'm personally taking away a good number of takeaways from the discussion. So I really appreciate all the perspectives. So with that, let me hand it over back to you, Shika.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that all felt so warm, and I think the key is to integrate human interaction with the digital experiences through reliable, secure, dynamic connectivity, omni-channel engagement, and collaboration platforms with maybe the embedded programmable communications and the IoT platforms that the panel also talked about. Moving to the hybrid models, businesses need services that should and must combine the skills, the expertise, and of course, the best tools to enable the smooth transition. Panel, thank you so very much. Thank you very much, Nataraj, for being with us, really being with us at the summit with your best energies intact and sharing your expertise around how do we enable the hyper-connected ecosystem. Thank you very much. We wish you a rest of the fine evening. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, of course, we spent like a good number of minutes with the discussion that just happened, but right now it's the time because we are almost gearing up towards the final leg of the day. So make sure that you leave no stone unturned to explore every bit, get those final leaderboard scores, those points in your kitty, and of course keep tracking where you're heading on the ranking system over there. Of course, some Amazon gift vouchers to be won, and if I remember that rightly, Engagement Zone, of course, where you can visit Engagement Zone is one. Then you can also visit the partner booths, download the certificates, resources, everything that you can yourself. I'm sure you're updated enough and you can just go around and about it. But yes, please do fill in the feedback forms. Once again, a gentle reminder. And with that, we're going to be talking about the digital value drivers. But, as the drill goes, of course, we will get you introduced to our next set of speakers. We'll just give you a little breather to maybe just play a game right now. You grab your coffee. We'll just be right back with this next session.